Jags. Hurts faking the handoff, the pass, bat into the air, and it's picked off. Intercepted by Cisco. Cisco still going inside the 20. Cisco is going to score. Pick 6 for Jacksonville.
Now, I want you to admit, whenever you were watching that moment on CBS, as we credit them for the audio, opening up a perfect 4 weeks of Eagles football, you were a little concerned, which is okay. Nobody was giving up. Nobody was saying it was time to fire Nick Sirianni or can the job for Jalen Hurts or get rid of Jonathan Gannon again or anything like that. It was just, what the hell, man? What could be going better than the first 3 weeks of football, only to be slammed over the head by Doug Pederson, of all people, coming back to Philadelphia? Now, the rain was huge, gigantic factor. But as we saw, there were a bunch of issues for the Jags, not just slowing down the run game. Wow. Let's just start with a fantastic victory for the Philadelphia Eagles. Absolutely. They gut one out in the awful conditions against a really good defense, and I was going to say defensive front, especially against the run. So Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, that offense, even the defense, that first quarter was awful. But they bounce immediately back. I don't know what is going on with this second quarter, but it is historic right now. I don't want them to be complacent, but so far through 4 weeks, they can just show up. And if they are late to the party, it doesn't even matter because by the second quarter, they're dominating. I mean, it was almost like they thought, let's test this theory here, right? We've been so good in the second quarter leading up to this game, it doesn't really matter. Let's just see. Let's spot the Jags 14. Oh, by the way, it's raining out. Oh, by the way, Doug Pederson's back. This was fantastic. One of the biggest regular season wins without anything on the line. I have to put caveats out here because you'll be like, what are you talking about? You can hit us up in the comment section here. Comment away. We love to hear from you. Good, bad, ugly, even if it's just calling me ugly, that's fine. But looking at what happened, the way in which the Philadelphia Eagles settled down, that never happened with Trevor Lawrence.
But you can kick a 40-yard field goal, basically, even though the weather is not great, and make it a 2-score game.
So Trevor Lawrence and company begin just outside the 20. Football is loose again. And the Eagles have recovered.
That was another opportunity for the Jaguars to correct mistakes, and we just never saw it. We just never, ever saw it. It was awful. I thought it was Carson Wentz-esque for Trevor Lawrence, except at least he could blame the rain, I guess. Could he? Could he blame it on the rain? I'm sorry, I had to. Wow, what a victory. And looking at where this Eagles team is right now at 4-0, atop the division, atop the NFL, with so much hope and promise now for a team, an individual quarterback, coaching staff. A.J. Brown's here, gets in the end zone. Like all of these things. Dallas Goedert arrived. This offense is unstoppable right now. I mean, this offense is truly a juggernaut in its definition. I don't know if you're a defensive coordinator. I don't know what you do as far as just chalk it up to you can't do this every single week. And at some point, you're going to catch them on a down week. I thought that might be the first quarter a little bit, although if you're following, we pounded the hell out of the Philadelphia Eagles live plus 134. That aside, I'm just saying this was a real strong victory that defines a team. And there are so many outlier situations in this. Like, you're not going to turn a team over 5 times like that, but you did, and you took advantage of it by scoring points off those turnovers, right? That's how you kind of mitigate outlier variance. Well, come on, Shander. You had a pick 6. Jalen Hurts, that pick 6 that you heard here when everybody was nervous, that pick 6 was awful, and it was on Jalen Hurts. He held on to the football way too long and did not zip that ball in fast enough to make up for the fact that it was coming late. Receiver makes a play on the ball as he's taught, as he's coached since day one, and stuff happens. Okay, we move on. But you were nervous, and I get it. Because it was a rare mistake, mental mistake by Jalen Hurts, followed up by a physical mistake by him. But did that matter? Did that bother him? to any extent other than maybe just motivating him to not do it again? Yeah, absolutely it did to that point, but it didn't bother him. Didn't get under this team. This team didn't collapse. Look, to credit Trevor Lawrence, Doug Pederson, that Jags offense, if you want to, they were 8 points away from tying a football game despite turning the ball over 5 times. But the composure was illustrated on the field by Hurts, and that was the biggest difference between the quarterbacks. Also, the play. The play. I'm just blown away at how good this Philadelphia Eagles team is. Blown away. And the way in which they were doing it on top of that, putting this thing together in such a key fashion and overcoming the rain, overcoming a 14-point deficit. These are the things you go back and look at. Look, Dallas Goedert and the tight end screen. Again, the variables, even if they're wide variants, you're able to capture and take advantage of that. And that's the definition of a good football team. Maybe not sports team because you have less variance across other sports with longer seasons, but things are just thrown at you in any and every NFL game. Stuff is just thrown at you 1,000 miles per hour. And how you handle it? Do you just get like that Dr. Phil? Is that you? Or do you settle down, you realize that, all right, let me just slow down, and now it's all of a sudden the Matrix. You're just seeing things. Okay. Jalen Hurts. Nick Sirianni. The offensive line after Jordan Mailata goes down. The secondary after Darius Slay leaves. All of that. Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was Dr. Phil out there. It was bad, man. Bad. 4-0 Eagles. I can't get enough of looking at that. I can't. All right, 3 big takeaways. 3 big takeaways here. You heard one clip as far as, just that's it, right? Like, that's the takeaway. This.
2nd and 7. Here come the Eagles on the blitz. Lawrence in the face of pressure, and it is picked. James Bradbury.
That's the takeaway.
But you can kick a 40-yard field goal, basically, even though the weather is not great, and make it a 2-score game.
So Trevor Lawrence and company begin just outside the 20. Football is loose again. And the Eagles have recovered.
It was all over CBS as we hear here the inability for Trevor Lawrence to hold on to the football. Terrible mistakes were made. A lot of things were happening. A lot of things. A lot of issues. And the Eagles not only pounced on the football, but they were able to turn those into points. And when you turn turnovers, flip those into points, especially since the Jags weren't turning people over, but were not to the extent in which they were doing it last year. This is what you do in the rain, is not just take advantage of something knocking you in the face, opportunity knocking on your door, but then running with it, scoring multiple times over. Second takeaway is this man here.
Probably figure they're going to do that zone read.
Desperately trying to keep him out of the end zone. Sanders, and he bangs it in.
Unbelievable.
Sanders from 5 yards out. More points off turnovers.
Unbelievable to watch Miles Sanders again 2 times over, cross the end zone, score on the ground, represent what he can do, represent his abilities on the ground as a true workhorse back, number one. Look, you didn't have Boston Scott. Kenny Gainwell stepped up. The running game was there against a huge defensive front, not just physically, but just as far as immense talent to slow down and neutralize opponents on the ground. And they've been doing that for 3 weeks. Miles Sanders. Wow. Miles Sanders. More Miles Sanders, please. More Miles Sanders on the ground. More Miles Sanders, number one back. More Miles Sanders, workhorse. More all of that. Pay the man. Anything you want. Second takeaway. We've talked about Jalen Hurts. We'll continue to talk about Jalen Hurts. He's the man. This guy ain't going anywhere. This young man is your Philadelphia Eagles quarterback moving forward. But you can't just talk about the rushing game, the running attack. You can't just talk about the Eagles on the ground without specifically highlighting what Miles Sanders has done so far this season. And Sunday was just another awesome example of that. Third takeaway is this. There was a real easy excuse built in. Like a real large gift-wrapped excuse for the Philadelphia Eagles to let down with Doug Pederson coming back. And it wasn't just Doug Pederson coming back. Like, part of it has to do with the fact that the Jags are a better football team this year than they have been before without Doug Pederson as their coach. That was huge. And there probably were tons of emotions riding. I mean, it's hard for me to think that guys like Jason Kelsey, right through Jalen Hurts, didn't have some sort of feeling, some sort of emotion about seeing the guy that you were battling with. Now, to a lesser extent, a later extent, Jalen Hurts, but that's the guy who was there in the organization that picked you. And prior, you've got guys on this team that won a Super Bowl with Doug Pederson. I mean, come on. Their only Super Bowl. The city's only Super Bowl. What those players went through that night, what those players went through, the parade, going through the bus tour, all the way back to Kelsey's speech and everything, that sticks with you. It's not just winning the Super Bowl. Hey, man, remember we beat the Patriots. No. It was everything, because so much of that matters way more in Philadelphia. And it mattered a ton for these guys. And yet you get credit, you get props, you get all the thumbs up in the world for overcoming human issues like emotion, like reunion, like revenge, like whatever it may be that Doug was motivated by. Not revenge against players, but revenge against front office, what have you. And the Eagles did not let that bother them by any means. 4-0. What happens now? Well, they move to Arizona. All I'm saying is this. Let's just hope that this is the first of 2 trips to Arizona this year. Just 2, all right? Now, we talked a lot about Miles Sanders. We talked a lot about Jalen Hurts, that offense, A.J. Brown, even the turnovers with Trevor Lawrence. You have a kid in Kyler Murray who can move. And he can move the football down the field in the air. Oh, and by the way, DeAndre Hopkins is back. This is not an easy football game. When you're 4-0 and the lone undefeated team in the NFL, this is where coaching, veteran leadership, this is where just staying the course. That's what this plays. Just stay the course. Stay the course and you're in good shape. Give me Miles. One more time on our way out.
Probably figure they're going to do that zone read.
Desperately trying to keep him out of the end zone. Sanders, and he bangs it in. Sanders from 5 yards out. More points off turnovers.